This mutation is called What Goes Around, and it is being played on Scythe of Amon. We have two mutators active, we have Double-Edged, and we have Mutually Assured Destruction. So let us have a look at our Artanis player. Unfortunately, I don't think the masteries are showing up here. Sometimes it happens with the observer interface because this is being played on an arcade map and some screwy things can happen. But we do have a warp speed increase mastery here, and I'm pretty sure as well there's a shield overcharge mastery that is being allocated, so all 30 points here. And the initial Spear of Adun energy mastery as well being selected. So those are the three mastery allocations that have been selected just by having a look at the top bar. And some people might be wondering, why am I casting another P2 Artanis game? Usually I prefer to cast different commanders, like at least a different commander every week. So the reason why I decided to do that is for a number of reasons, and one of them is during my Mutation Shorts video, I forgot to mention something really important about Artanis, because I did recommend Artanis for this mutation. I said he is one of the favorite commanders for this mutation. The one thing I forgot to mention about Artanis is if you're playing P3, you should not use your orbital strikes for Archon damage, which basically means you should not be using your orbital strikes at all. And the reason for that is because the unstable energy, which is the plasma balls, the Archons release, those things will disappear as soon as they deal damage, because they're considered to have like 1 HP, and they also take double-edged damage. So as soon as they hit an Amon unit, they will disappear, which means your Archons are going to be entirely useless. So that is the thing I kind of forgot to mention about Artanis selection on this week's mutation. Now, the other reason I wanted to cast this game is because there is a very interesting interaction with Double Edge, which is what I mentioned during the Mutation Shorts video, which is when you're playing a Protoss commander who has shields, your double-edged damage gets applied to shields. So when your unit deals damage to an Amon unit, your shields will take damage from the double-edged damage. But what will happen is that your shields, your HP will regenerate first, because of how double-edged works. Double-edged heals your shields. So that is one thing to note about with double-edged when you're playing this mutation here. So we have a few orbital strikes here just to start weakening this up. And you can see what's happening over here. Artanis' Dragoons are actually regenerating HP, and this is the HP of the damage that is being dealt by double-edged. But their shields will first take damage. So this actually means that whenever you're playing a Protoss commander, Protoss commanders can actually be slightly favored against double-edged because it allows them to heal their units when usually it is not possible for Protoss to heal their units. So Scythe of Amon, the good practice over here is to try and take out the expansion Void Sliver first, because that is going to allow you to take your expansion. So generally, taking expansions are good in this game, so we'll probably see a Sieged Up Observer, and there will probably be a Solar Bombardment to follow quickly after. So there's a Warpin over there, Solar Bombardment also. The Warpin is going to draw aggro of Amon's units here, so these Amon units will end up getting wiped out by some of the Solar Bombardment and a little bit of damage as well by the Dragoons, and that'll be that cleared out. So there we go. There's going to be a little bit of a cleanup here, and whatever is left now pretty much stands no chance against Artanis' army, and now Artanis has his expansion and is ready to go. So over here, I'll try and show you as well again Dragoon. So we'll take. Is there a Dragoon here that has taken a little bit of hull damage as well? Let's take a look at this one. It's kind of difficult to click. There we go. You can see over here, all these Dragoons now are going to be sitting at full HP. I don't know whether you noticed earlier. Some of these Dragoons had a little bit of hull damage, but now they all no longer have hull damage. But you can see here double-edged, dealing damage to their shields and not to their HP. So that actually helps a lot when you're playing Artanis. We also have the Trillic Compression Systems upgrade, Singularity Charge, so all really good. And this Dragoon upgrade is going to make them really effective as well. It allows them to regenerate their shields in combat, so life is actually really good now for Artanis. So if you're a free-to-play player, this is one of the things that you can do, and you know it's gonna be like I said, the pay-for-it commanders, they are definitely stronger. But if you are a free-to-play player, this is an option that is very accessible. It is not like last week's mutation. Think fast when you're playing with Speed Freaks propagators, not a particularly fun combination and not a particularly easy combination to play either. Now, the one thing to note about when you're playing this as well is pay attention to the other mutator that is active, because on this mutation, there are two mutators active. There is mutually assured destruction. And unfortunately, in the enemy bases, there are no, well, fortunately, unfortunately, there are no enemy hybrids in the enemy bases, and you tend to forget that this mutator is even there. And this has happened to me a few times. I will play and I will forget that mutually assured destruction is active, and I'm going to run my army into an attack wave, and I lose my entire army because I forgot that this mutator actually is a thing in this game. So do pay attention. The void ray or the warp prism, whatever. Yeah, the warp prism. I forgot what the thing is called. The warp prism goes down, but then again, who sends an evacuation ship right into enemy forces and enemy territory? Apparently, they have still not learned that is not a good idea. So Artanis is going to be waiting along here, and remember, you have solar bombardment active and you have it accessible to you, and my understanding is the first two void slivers, whichever ones you do, are going to be easy pickings for the solar bombardment, because I think the void slivers are one-shots for the first two. And the second one and the third one, actually, you have maybe you will need a few forces there, but I'm pretty sure it brings the void sliver into the yellow or orange territory. So it's like it takes off all its shields. And like, there we go. We have a nice shield overcharge over here, just trying to keep these things alive. And remember, absorbing the double edge damage there, allowing the rest of these Protoss units to actually heal up. So this Immortal now is going to start regenerating HP thanks to double edge. So again, Artanis taking advantage of this mutator really, really well. So 2 minutes and 57 seconds left. There is another void sliver now that needs to be picked off. And again, notice how I think he may be going for this one, which is again really good idea. There is really no reason to try and pick up this void sliver unless you really have to. Remember, the slivers at the back are going to be the more difficult ones to clear out, and every single time you clear out a void sliver, the other ones will get stronger. They will get more shields, they will get more HP, and most importantly, they will get stronger defenses around them. So, you know, you're not going to see a battle cruiser in the first void sliver that you take out, but eventually you will start to see them. So it's nice to see that Artanis wants to try and focus on this one. That is usually the pathing I go. I usually go for, so this is called sliver number 2, and this is sliver number 4 usually. So I usually do this one, then this one, and then I usually pick off the other one as well. These are like ideal. These are the most ideal scenarios here. So there is again a solar bombardment that will be dropped over here, and the solar bombardment should be able to take out this void sliver by itself. So you won't be able to see it over here, but we're going to pay attention to the timer, which means that the sliver ends up going down, which is really nice. Artanis kind of wants to try and push in. Like, a lot of the enemy forces will be dead here, so it's not really too much of an issue, but maybe Artanis wants to be a little bit careful with how he engages there. Maybe he just wants extra shields. He wants to just regenerate his army, which is also something you can do. Remember, again, double edge that is active and being very, very convenient. But the issue is here. You have like a lot of nasty units here. You will start taking damage with this, and unfortunately Artanis also does not have detection. His observer was picked off, so it is going to be a little bit difficult for him to deal with that one Banshee over there, so he will need to warp in an observer. Does he have a... he does have a robo, so his robo is still up. How many robos does he have, actually? Okay, that's the second one coming out right now, so that is actually good. I was going to say, he has some Immortals as well in his army, so his observers may not be able to be warped in as quickly as he would like. But two robos for Artanis is usually good, especially once you have completely saturated your expansion and your main. Now, one thing to note about worker saturation here is that it is usually better to try and take off maybe 2 workers from the recommended number of workers that are shown on your nexus or your primary structure. And if you're looking for more reasons as to why, I have done a full video on mining and how mining works, where I think I do talk about this. But it basically comes down to these closer mineral patches. Your workers are not really going to be able to mine as much out of this. You will get a little bit more, but usually it's not worth it. So just usually pick off just a couple more workers. Unfortunately, the nuke goes off there for the hybrid. There will be, I think, some orbital strikes there focusing on these hybrids, but these hybrids are still strong. Remember the hybrid destroyers as well? They do detonate nukes, but their nukes are not as large as the other ones. So you can see it's a very, very tiny nuke here, so it's not really much of an issue. You gotta be careful with any other hybrid that you're playing. Fish hybrids will have a little bit of a delay before the nuke detonates because they have a little bit of a longer animation. They have the wiggling animation they make when they are dying. So so that means that the nuke detonation will be a little bit slower here. Artanis will have to be a little bit careful. These Dragoons are dealing damage to these units over here. They are dealing damage to the Void Sliver, and the Void Sliver is considered an armored unit, and Dragoons deal damage, bonus damage to armored. They deal roughly double damage to armored, so they will start to melt over here, and eventually they will actually, and a few Dragoons do go down due to the double edge damage over here. I actually do not know as well if the double edge counts on the observer interface. I think if your unit kills itself to double edged, then it doesn't actually show up on the observer interface. I think. I'm not 100% certain. There are a few little quirks in the replay interface. Remember, the replay interface was never made for co-op. It was made for ladder games, so it is a little bit more. It is a little bit less adapted to displaying random things like mutator interactions and co-op and whatnot. 2 more Void Slivers are available and left on the map. Again, there's going to be an observer moving, and he also has gotten his Gravitic Boosters upgrade. He wants to try and snag that one Void Sliver, which he's going to be doing right now. He's going to have to warp in his entire army as well to try and deal with this, because the Solar Bombardment will not one-shot this next Void Sliver for sure. So he's going to also be careful over here. There's going to be a Warpin over here. Solar Bombardment quickly after. I would have actually waited until Shield Overcharge was active, because his army is going to take a lot of unnecessary damage over here. And unfortunately, a lot of his army has to get warped out right now. He does end up warping out his army. He does snipe that Void Sliver, which is actually really nice. Just automatic focus fire here, and he is good to go. Now he has 11 minutes until the next Void Sliver activates, so this is still plenty of time. He has to deal with this attack wave, and remember, the only thing that has hybrids is going to be this attack wave, and this is a nasty Robo Reaver attack wave here. There's going to be a few orbital strikes here just to weaken some of these hybrids, which I guess is okay, but this is going to be a little bit tricky over here. He's going to take the high ground advantage, and he's going to try and attack this hybrid. Stall with a Zealot. He has to move out of the way. Kite back. Very nice kite back. Unfortunately, he still ends up getting clipped by the nuke. Not really too much of a problem. Double Edge will heal his army. He's going to be taking a little bit more damage over here. The Reavers again dealing a lot of damage here, but he is fine right now, and his army is just going to start healing up now. And he has to wait. I think he may want to wait until the next Solar Bombardment comes out, but overall, you kind of do not want to stall this mission as well. The one other thing to note about this mission is attack waves are relatively infrequent at the start, but once you start getting past the 20-minute mark, I think it's something like that, once you start lengthening this mission, you will start getting very, very frequent attack waves, and that means there will be a lot more hybrids, a lot more nukes, a lot more chances for you to actually lose your army. So he's gonna have to wait now for another 3 minutes for this thing to come up. I think this mutation overall, like while he's waiting, I'm just gonna do some idle chit chat here. I think for overall this mutation is gonna be a little bit annoying. Usually for Scythe of Amon mutations, Manx works really well, but Earth Splitters do take damage as well from double edge, so you can't really use them. I guess you could maybe use the Manx cooldown. The Manx nuke might work, and that is one option. The other option as well is just snipe the Void Slivers with Carax. Carax P3 can also snipe these Void Slivers, or you can do something where if you don't really care, you can play like Stukov and just, you know, send your infested over and again. It doesn't really matter too much. You can see now there's already another attack wave making its way towards Artanis. Artanis will have to deal with this, I think. There's no way of avoiding it, and this attack wave is going to be there. Unless he maybe wants to try and base trade, like that is one other option, but he's kind of going to be getting it close. There are Reavers in the attack wave, and they're going to melt this base really, really quickly. So Artanis is going to drop in some more gateways as well. I think he's going to warp in a bunch of Zealots, go a little JYK on the hybrids, and just run a bunch of Zealots to their deaths. And the goal here is to just block the hybrid. He's just going to try and body block the hybrid. He's going to have to pull his army back a little bit. And there's again a little bit of nuke here. Guardian Shell keeping a lot of his army alive here. Some of these Immortals are taking again a little bit of damage. Remember, these Immortals also have bonus damage to armor. They're dealing 60 damage to armored, which means like they actually take a severe pounding. So it's double edge is a really nasty mutator. It's very, very difficult to deal with. I don't think any commander really has an easy way of dealing with double edged, but there are certain options that you can utilize here. So he's going to have a Solar Bombardment ready in about 25 seconds. I'm going to assume that he's just going to warp in, drop his shield overcharge as well to keep his army alive, and solar bombardment on there, and maybe even try and snipe it with some orbital strikes, just dealing as much damage as he possibly can. And that should pretty much be the end of the game. So he's going to cluster up his army right now onto his warp field. I'm going to move over here so we can see the warping as it occurs at the very last second. His army's already ready. He has moving an observer somewhere for some apparent reason. I think he wants to try and get a little bit of vision of, at least get a little bit closer onto this void on this void sliver, but I think he should be okay. Like, even if he doesn't have that, he can warp in his army over here and then drop the solar bombardment on. But I think he wants to use solar bombardment maybe first. I think, but there's going to be so much detection over here. I don't know if it's going to be possible or reasonable. Should be close enough here. He will have to warp in his army first, and the order that I would do is warp in, shield overcharge, and then solar bombardment in. But this should be the sliver completely cleared out. There's an attack wave now coming up, and Artanis has to go unless he wants to try and deal with this other attack wave. But I do not think that would be viable. Yeah, there we go. Warpin, shield overcharge, and solar bombardment. They're pretty much the order I would have done it in as well. Shield overcharge is going to keep his army alive, and just see how quickly Artanis' army is able to completely clear this area out as well. Nothing left but the Phoenixes over here. Attack wave taking out this base. Some casualties, not showing the double-edged casualties, definitely. And that is all the void shards cleared, and that is GG.